Okay, welcome everyone. It is our monthly community meeting for Monroe Equity Council. My name is Melanie Ryan and I am the board president. Tonight we have a very important community meeting. We are going to be discussing racism in the Monroe School District. We have a panelist that I don't think you can see on your screen quite yet because I have the screen up. But all of these panelists are current or former families within the Monroe School District. All of these are families of color, and all of them have had stories to tell and experience of racism within the district. This is a meeting that we must have. We must discuss this as a community. We must not just discuss it, but as we move towards and through this discussion, we must discuss what action looks like, because this has got to stop. But we must have this, but it is heartbreaking and agonizing that we are having it. And it is particularly heartbreaking and agonizing for the people who are on this call. So I want to start with recognizing that our panelists are vulnerable and brave and heartbroken and resilient. And we need to honor all the feelings that are going to come up tonight. And that really brings us into our inclusive community agreements. Today is a listening meeting. For those of you who attend our meetings, you may be used to a little bit more discussion, but tonight is a listening meeting. We need to listen to people's lived experiences and we need to believe them. And that is what tonight is about. And as you listen, we always practice these community agreements with each other, but think about practicing them in a little bit different way when you're in a listening mode. Ask yourself questions when you hear things rather than defend positions you may already have. Consider having coffee with someone as a follow-up. And I don't just mean the panelists, I mean your friends, your neighbors. Have coffee with someone, talk about this meeting, share your thoughts, be open to feedback on how you viewed this meeting. Examine your assumptions and biases tonight and moving forward. This is a key one. This is a big one for me that I have practiced in my own journey. If you have a strong reaction tonight, pause. Ask yourself why you're having this reaction. It's often a clue that something internal to you is going on, not external to what you're reacting to, and or bias is occurring. It can be a great learning moment. Assume best intent. I've talked with the panelists about this. I feel a little squishy about that one because not everyone has best intent. And sometimes I think that can be particularly harmful, because intent really isn't what it's about impact. So even when you have good intent, if someone is harming, it's really about the impact. That's something we can talk about as a community moving forward. And seek to understand. Refrain tonight from confirmation bias. Refrain from looking things that support the position you already believe in and looking to defend a pre-existing position. Okay. So moving there, we start our meetings with a land acknowledgement. I'm going to open up and see if anyone on the panel wants to read this land acknowledgement before we move forward. Janelle, is that you?
Yes, I will. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We honor the indigenous people upon whose land we stand, the Snohomish, the Skykomish, the Tulalip, and the Coast Salic. We recognize and respect them as the traditional stewards of this land and acknowledge the enduring relationship that exists between indigenous people and their colonized territories.
Thank you. Your panel participants tonight, as we kick off the discussion for tonight, as each panel takes a turn speaking, they will introduce themselves to you. and a little bit about their stories, but I did want to have a moment for everyone to reflect on the full panel as you see here tonight, and how they represent a wide variety of current and former students, parents, a district employee. And so we do have a broad number. We also do have the family, Stephanie Holloman, who is the mother, and Erica Henry, who is the godmother of the student who was attacked on November 10th. I want to be clear and starting this meeting that this is a horrific event. These horrific events are happening all the time. And I think you will hear that tonight. This horrific event got videoed, and it's receiving a lot of attention. And in fact, if you heard us speak at the board meeting in 2016, Will Smith said, racism doesn't happen more often, it's just getting filmed. And so it's a catalyst event, but it's not a new event. And I think that's really important for our community to understand. So with that, a couple other technical things to discuss before we get going on the meeting tonight. You should be able to use the Q&A function. The Q&A function is to ask questions. We may or may not open up to questions at the end. That's going to depend on how our discussion goes. That's going to depend on the amount of time we have. And when those questions come, we'll do a combination of MEC screening for questions, as well as I believe the panelists, you should all be able to see questions. And if you can, if there's a particular question that interests you in answering, MEC is going to be going through those questions. So if there are any inappropriate questions, if there is any racism in those questions will be deleted and you will be removed from the meeting. Let's hold that boundary very tightly tonight and hold to our inclusive community agreements. It's very important to us. This is a safe place for our families tonight. But our chat is disabled because this is listening. We really want people listening. We want people focused. If you do need to reach an admin for any reason, that you may text Bridget at 425-263-0492. We open that up just in case there is a safety issue. 425-263-0492. I think that covers most everything technically. So let's get started with the discussion. Stephanie, let's start with you. Let's start with you introducing yourself to the community and who you are, and sharing with the community what happened to your family on November 10th, and where you're at with that, and what's important to you that the community knows and understands.
Well, my name is Stephanie. I am Keith's mother. Since everything's happened, we're just kind of like, everything in our life is pretty much on hold because we don't feel safe here. My son works at the Walmart here in the city, and it's been extremely hard to get a restraining order on the people that's done it, down to I couldn't even get names. I had to sneakily get names through people that would give them to me. And I just feel like no one cares. They just want my son to return to school and just kind of sweep it under the rug. This isn't the first time this has happened. This is just the first time it was caught on camera, literally. That's just what it is. My son's been going to the school since the 7th, 8th grade, the school district, and it's just a continuous thing. He's afraid to be at work. We're home now, and I'm up all night long because I have to make sure we make it through the night, and I'm just like extremely exhausted through the day, dragging because I've been up all night long because I'm terrified of if somebody comes to my house. They said they were going to drive around in the neighborhood, and I've not seen them around in the neighborhood. Monroe PD They've done it one time. I haven't seen them again since then. It's just an ongoing battle. It's just an ongoing battle. They have showed up at my son's work since this hall has come down. They showed up at his job 3 days in a row, harassing him, walking around.
Who is they that showed up at his?
That would be Will Cunningham, Michaela Cunningham, and Parker Nichols.
Okay, so the students who attacked him at the school and the father
students and the father
showed up at his work.
Showed up at his work.
And can you, I don't, maybe everyone on the call may not be fully familiar with the story. If you feel safe and comfortable sharing it, could you tell the community a little bit about why you feel and why KJ feels so unsafe?
So the story goes is he was protecting a friend that was getting racially bullied by the three. And he walked up to him, was asking questions, and Michaela just kind of escalated things and began to say the racial slurs to him. Then called the father on the phone and held it to his ear. And then he began to say stuff in his ear on the phone. And then Michaela repeated it back. And he was just saying that he's a big C and he kills ends like my son, and told her to take a picture of my son. She took a picture of my son, and then she began to continue to scream racist slurs, hit him in the face with the water bottle, all because he's a bigger kid now than when he was in the 8th and 9th grade. So all his friends feel like because the school hasn't done anything all these years, they felt like when he came back, the bigger kid on town, now they felt like somebody could stand up for him and protect them. And it's really sad that that's the way that they're operating in school, because they cannot go to the adults there.
You said no one cares. What would it look like for people to care? What would it look like for the school to care? What would it look like for the community to care? What does that look like for you and your family?
It means to stand up when you see things that are happening wrong. It means to talk to your friends, talk to your families, talk to people that are not of the same color and have the same issues, and educate them on what's going on and how to be how to make things happen, how to make the change, how to be a part of the change. Don't put us on the back burner. Don't not make us feel like what we're telling you isn't important because no one's making a big deal about it. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. Just because it's not at your front door inside your home does not mean it's not happening. You become a part of the problem when you feel like that, when you think that way.
I want to tell more of your story as the evening goes on. I'm going to bring in some other people now, and I'd really like to bring AJ and Craig in right now. AJ and Craig, some people on this call may have seen them. They were interviewed last night on Q13. But AJ, for those who may not be familiar with your story, and Craig, can you tell a little bit about your family, what has been happening, the impact for you as well?
I'm Craig. This is my wife, AJ. So our situation, our 6th grade, he was really excited to start school at Park Place Middle School. And month in, so mid-October, he kind of broke down and told my wife about that he'd been racially harassed, the N-word used against him several times. And we immediately tried to bring that to the school, have a meeting with the principal, get some sort of positive action happening, get them to state some people that the N-word is never acceptable ever, and that there'll be actual consequences if you use that word. And didn't really get anywhere towards that goal. I could totally empathize with what she's saying about dealing with trying to any kind of visibility with this school administration and district administration. Is just we tried reaching out to everybody. We tried forcing follow-up meetings that didn't get attended. We tried calling people, didn't get callbacks. We've been trying everything to try and
we really wanted to be tactical in how we approached it. We didn't want people to not have knowledge of what was going on. It was really important for everyone to be educated on what was happening at Park Place to our son. We heard a lot of great things from everyone. However, there was no action, and with action, my son lost faith and continue racial harass. And as a family, we had to make the decision. They forced our hand by their lack of action, lack of urgency with the issue. We had to pull him out of school actually. So he's still at home, a Park Middle School student, but he will be working from home until we decide what's best for him as a family. We have 2 children, 21 and 18. And this is just disheartening.
Yeah.
Lack of communication from the whole. There's a lot of change that needs to happen. And when we brought it to the attention of the district and the school level, we ensure that we made ourselves available to partner and help educate and help be a part of change. And that also, there's been a little movement there on a school level, but we're looking at things on a district level. The culture of the Monroe School District needs to change, and we're demanding change as a family.
When you talk about the culture of the Monroe School District, what would you say that culture is now? And what do you want it to change to?
I would sweep stuff under the rug, do damage control.
And accountability.
Yeah, there's no accountability. They don't want to have a difficult conversation. They don't want to even say the word race.
No.
They want to tell as few people as possible. Like, one of the things we learned when we took our son out and tried to do, virtual, is first of all, they let us know that that's not a long-term solution that the school did. And then second of all, we reached out to his teachers to try and get his schoolwork and make sure he was, keeping up. And it seemed like it was the first time any of his teachers had heard about why he was actually not attending school. It's like, wouldn't that be one of the first things that you do?
Yeah.
If you had any kind of process, if you weren't just trying to sweep this under the rug, wouldn't you tell the teacher this is what's going on?
I hear a lot of saying we care, we're concerned, we're hurt. The actions are not following up. So at this point, our family just does not have faith as a whole. And we will be taking it into our hands to make sure that they're accountable and to make sure the necessary change happens.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think a good segue here is that we heard two recent stories, and we heard about the culture. And Jill, as you and I have talked, your experience going back all the way to 2012 as both a parent and as a district employee. And I think there's a lot that you've shared about this culture and about the experiences your family's had as a biracial family. And if you, I think, again, if you would like to introduce yourself and then tell the community more about some of the experiences you had are alarming. I mean, everyone's is alarming, but some very alarming experiences with a very alarming outcome. So let's hear more about your story.
Yeah, my husband and I have 4 biracial children, the oldest being 25, 22, 14, and 11. The 2 oldest are Monroe graduates. And I was a district employee, a school counselor for 19 years. So I just moved over to Eastern Washington 2 years ago. And probably the second reason was we didn't want our son to go to high school in Monroe. We didn't trust that the district administration would keep him safe. So back to 2002, our daughter was a sophomore, is when we had a few incidents that popped up. But it actually, after these incidents popped up, we found out when she was in junior high, she was called the N-word every day. We didn't know it. She didn't tell us because she didn't want her dad to go to the school and be labeled the angry Black man, because he would have absolutely raised a fit. And she also didn't want me to get fired. During all of this, I also was really terrified that me speaking up, trying to keep her safe, would get me fired. Trying to nutshell it, there was a verbal altercation in the high school where she was screamed at, "You are an effing N-word." And then out of that, a friend had made a threat on a school bus that he was going to come to school the next day in a KKK outfit and beat that N-word's ass. We reported it to the school, and they said, actually, that was just hearsay. There wasn't anything they could do about it. And they really couldn't help how children are raised out here in Monroe. So there was that. Then about 3 weeks to a month later, in the parking lot, she was walking down the hill there, and somebody in a minivan with full of kids tried to run her over and scream the N-word at her. And again, we're back up at the school, like, what's going on? You guys got to keep her safe. These are 2 incidences now in a row that have a direct threat, in our opinion, as parents, to her. We were told they can't help how kids are raised. The police were, yeah, we know the girl who screamed the N-word. She's just a loudmouth. She likes to pop off. And the person who was driving the car was a former student, so they can't do anything about that. So we were just like, yeah, you can ban him from your campus. You can do stuff. And they just didn't. At the time, Monroe had a real culture of Confederate flag wearing type hats and belt buckles and Confederate flags in their cars. They were not, the 2 incidents were not the friend group, but they were of the same type of kids who both had Confederate flag type, whatever that displays. We took it to the high school. I'm like, well, if anything, can we at least change this culture? Can we do something to keep her safe? No, they couldn't. We had to, as parents, create our own safety plan for her. She could not be anywhere on campus by herself. She had to have a person with her, preferably someone white. So that made her a little more safe. I have to really commend the band teacher. The band teacher stepped up and said that she would be her safe person. She could go to her at any point in time. Her volleyball team made sure she was safe. So we had kids, and she had her Hispanic friends who said they knew how she felt, that they would watch her back and make sure she was safe. So with all of that being said, I wasn't taken seriously until I emailed the board all of this, that, and the other. Mind you, I'm a school district employee thinking I'm going to get fired for speaking out, because the HR director, who is now the current superintendent, is pretty retaliatory of employees. We didn't get any response until we CC'd the NAACP, and at that point in time, they finally banned the Confederate flag, and that was all we really got from it.
That's horrifying. That's horrifying. I want to add one thing here, and then Yesenia, I'm going to move to you in a minute. But as you talk about the Confederate flag, and as we've been monitoring the conversations in our community over this, one thing we hear a lot is Monroe's not racist. We're not racist. We're not a racist community. And we want to keep having an ongoing discussion about this and really talk about, well, how are you defining racism? And there's always an ongoing conversation of what racism is as an individual act and what it is systemically. We've seen both. We're hearing both of these things here tonight. But the reason I'm interjecting right here to talk about this is that when you talk about the Confederate flag, maybe you had some success in doing that, but we have a member of our board who was in the drive-through at Starbucks this weekend And 2 cars in front of her, there was a truck with a very, very large VDARE decal. And for those who are listening tonight who don't know what VDARE is, it's a white supremacist group. And so, you know, yes, we have very extreme racism, such as white supremacy, and we have very subtle racism, and we have everything in between. And as long as we continue to deny that, we're gonna have a very hard time, you know, being able to do anything to change the stories that we hear tonight. Yesenia, I want to go to you a little bit, because one of the things Jill hit on is that, you know, she talked about her daughter's Hispanic friends and her Hispanic friends saying, we understand. And we have heard from Hispanic families too. And we have, you know, 20-some%, low 20% of Hispanic kids in our school district. And I'm wondering, you know, what your experience is, what you have seen, what your observation, what is your story that you want to share with the community tonight?
First, I want to thank you, Melanie, for having me here tonight, inviting me. And I want to just say that I'm so sorry to hear that this is happening in Monroe. I am a former Monroe graduate. I graduated in 2011. And I personally want to say that I did experience racism as well. There was a group of people that were older, or students that were older than me, that would only target me in math class. And I just never knew why they only, you know, they would say racial slurs, specifically Mexican slurs to me in class. And I remember my math teacher, her name Mrs. Vaught. I don't know if anybody remembers her, had her. But yeah, I remember telling her all about it, because they would write it on the whiteboard for everybody to see. They would draw things. And it got to the point where I would tell her, she didn't do anything about it. And then I took it to security, and they kind of just brushed it off and said that they would look into it, and never really did anything until I took matters into my own hands. I ended up hurting another student because of the frustration that I was in. I know that it wasn't right, but it felt so frustrating because I didn't feel heard. And it just makes me so sad to hear everybody whose children are going through this, because I now have 2 children. They're young, but it just makes me feel very unsafe for them.
Thank you for sharing that. That is
Yeah.
definitely vulnerable, very painful. One of the things I often say is despair brings destruction. And that's what I heard you say. You were in so much despair that you were, you know, you brought destruction. And and you know, we know that about trauma too, right? And there was so much trauma that was placed on you. What could the school have done differently? And those patterns are being repeated now as we hear, so that they aren't compounding trauma that has already occurred, that they aren't part of being responsible for someone who is pushed to destruction. What would you like to see differently?
First of all, I would like for the school, or the school to listen to listen to people, listen to us, and believe us. Because if it were the other way around, I feel like they would have done something.
Mhm.
And so it's very unfair that they just have, I guess, an upper hand in this because they're, excuse what I'm saying, but because they're white.
You don't need to apologize for
So,
saying. You don't need
yeah.
to. A fair statement. Erica, you had your hand up, so I want to, and sorry, I didn't see it at first. You've got a cream background, so it's hard to see your hand. You are the godmother of KJ, as well as you were formerly involved with the district as well. So you have both a historical and this current experience. Tell us more about your story.
In 2014, I was homeless and living in Everett, and I was assigned to transitional housing in Monroe by the old school district building. There's a Housing Hope housing next to that, and I lived there. During that time, there was a boom of Housing Hope communities being built in Monroe. There was one being built over by closer to the prison. There was one of the townhomes, first home buyers program being built the street from there. So there was a fluctuation of low income families coming into Monroe. And I tried to get my son involved in all the sports there. And that's when he started to experience his first racism there by playing Pop Warner football for the Little Monroe Bearcats. The harassment went from the field to him being racially bullied at Frank Wagner Elementary School, where he was being targeted every day. And like Yesenia said, my son was a child that reacted to it. So by him reacting, there was some, I feel like the school district over-disciplined my son for his reaction to the actions of the students that were attacking him. There was no consequences for the children that were saying racial slurs. There was no consequences for the children that were saying like, oh, you can't come to my sleepover because the grease or the stuff you put in your hair, you guys don't take baths every day. So we don't want that on our sheets and on our pillows and stuff like that. So he was playing for a football team, being a very talented child, but not even being invited to sleepovers, gatherings for the team. And I expressed that to Dr. Blasco. I actually advocated for the families because I also felt the school district over-disciplined the children of low-income families and minority children. So a white child could do the same offense as the Black child, and the Black child is suspended, written up, and then they, like, I think it was AJ that said that the other teachers didn't know why your son wasn't in school. It was the same thing that happened with me, but if my son reacted and had a disciplinary issue, you best believe all those teachers knew that my son had a disciplinary action against him, but none of them knew what was going on with my son racially. So I advocated for the low income families. I got on the parent advisory board with the school board and Dr. Blasco, and every week pregnant with my 3-year-old, I went up there and advocated as best as I can. The school board promised me a lot of things. Oh, we're going to get diversity training. We're going to get low income and poverty and trauma training, because I was trying to explain to them that if these families are coming from a homeless situation to transitional housing, these children have experienced trauma. So their reaction to what's going on around them is an additional trauma. So if they have a big, huge explosion, it's not what's going on, not what's happening, it's what's going on. There's something behind that. So I diligently try to advocate for that. Stephanie will tell you, I would call her and be like, I'm doing this. I went to Olympia to talk to the Congress people about low income families in these rural areas, and the communities that they're putting us in were low in numbers, and the community is not supporting us, but we're bringing revenue and filling in jobs in these communities and trying to be a part of the community, but we're not accepted. I can say this, Dr. Blasco was, I think, the assistant superintendent when I lived there about 4 years ago. And he told me then that he was going to implement all these things to help Indigenous minorities, diversity training, talk about systemic racism, talk about systemic, like all that stuff. And then when skip ahead to this time now, me and Stephanie went and met with him, and he said, I dropped the ball. He didn't do anything that he said he was going to do 4 years ago. So this is something that has been going on for years. And at the end of the day, the schools are going to follow what the school board is doing. So if the school board allows these things, or not implementing policies, or trying to change any of these things, or backing up these families and saying what's going on, and the school is going to follow in suit behind that. And that's what's been going on. I think that since we're so low in numbers there, and like I told Stephanie, a lot of Black folks that I know become complacent when we move to Monroe. We like, oh, we're around all these white folks. We don't want to cause no trouble. I don't want to be the loud Black angry woman. I don't want to get that stereotype on me. So we allowed a lot of things to be done to us. But when it started to happen at the schools to our children, we tried to take up for our children and we were lied to and deceived.
So Erica, you said a couple of things I'd like to hit on. And I want to pull in a few of the voices we haven't
You
heard.
hungry? I gave you your chocolate. I'm sorry, let me mute myself.
We got a 3-year-old. I will come back to Erica, but maybe I'll pull Janelle in, and then, you know, Tanya, obviously, Nathan and Zoe, I'm going to pull you guys in as well. You all in as well. But Janelle, I want to hit on a couple of things she said, and then maybe you can give me your thoughts on that, and then also more broadly share your story. Also, I want to make sure everyone knows that we have Tamara, who is the vice president of the Black Student Union in the red, raise your hand, Tamara, and is Janelle's daughter. And we have DC, who is the president of the Black Student Union. So when I say Janelle, I mean all three of you, okay? So all three of you, please participate, tell your stories. There are two things that I want to pull out of what Erica said. One is stereotypes. It is such a difficult thing. When I think about the way I advocate for my children, I don't have to come in there with this same worry of being dismissed because I have the angry Black woman trope or the angry Black boy trope, which is also what Erica hit on in terms of particularly Black boys being over disciplined, ignoring what occurred to the despair that caused the destruction and moving straight towards discipline. And then we get in this vicious cycle, right? That they're known as a troublemaker, which makes them even more disciplined and so on and so forth. And Janelle has 7 kids in the district that you will hear about. And so I'd like to talk a little bit more about how you have to fight through the stereotypes to be an advocate for your child. And then I want to talk to, and eventually I want to open this discussion up to everybody, is, you know, Erica talked about, you know, 4 years she had a discussion, 4 years later, she's hearing, you know, I dropped the ball. What does accountability look like? How do we hold the board accountable? How do we hold the district accountable? What does this look like? So Janelle, let's open it up for you three. Share your stories as you want. And then if you have any thoughts on either stereotypes or accountability, I'd love to hear that as well.
Well, I just want to kind of piggyback a little bit on what Erica was saying in regards to the children being over disciplined, minority children. It doesn't just happen at the high school, doesn't just happen at the middle school. We moved here when my son was in the 1st grade. He was attending Chain Lake. And while there, he was told that he was disgusting because he was Black. He was told that he's the color of poop. But best believe, I didn't get a call when those things happened, but I got a call when Jordan hit somebody with his backpack, you know? And I'm the type of parent that I know I live with my children. I know they're not angels, but I'm also smart enough to know that he's reacting to something, right? And so I had a struggle. I really had a struggle there at Chain because it was a constant Jordan this, Jordan that, Jordan this, Jordan that, Jordan this. Well, so you mean to tell me he just doing all that for no reason? And then he had one teacher, Mrs. Klopp, loved her to death because she looked beyond just Jordan, right? And she was like, well, you know what? This certain situation happened and I saw what happened before it, right? I mean, kids would go up to him and like pat his hair because it was so fluffy. You're in my personal space. And as a child, children don't really know how to react. They don't know how to say, please get out of my personal space. No, I'm gonna push you. But then all they see is him pushing somebody, so then I get called. You know, and I just think things like that, like, I mean, he was in the 1st grade. And then you have someone like KJ who is in the 11th or the 10th grade, I'm not sure, but he's in high school, right? So if you have someone who deals with that from 1st through 11th grade, like, I mean, how detrimental can that be to a child? Like, how traumatic can that be, right? You hear about Yesenia and what she's gone through, and then you read about back in 2006 when you had nooses. Like, are you serious? 2006, and we're in 2021. So you ask me what accountability looks like. Accountability looks like action. It looks like change. It looks like zero tolerance. It looks like harsh consequences. It doesn't look like, well, we know what type of family they come from. Okay, well, when Jordan hit somebody with his backpack, you didn't say, well, we know that Jordan's been targeted with some racial things, right? So it's like Erica says, you know, we need to be fair all the way across the board, period. And that's what accountability looks like. You know, it starts in elementary. I mean, my son at Park Place, just recently, as a week and a half ago, you got a student looking up the N-word in Spanish and constantly pressing the button. So the little Miss Google lady is saying that word. Like, you know, but if my son would have hauled off and popped somebody, then I bet I'd be getting called in. It wouldn't have taken 5 days for me to find out, right? So we just need to be fair. We need to see action, and we need to hold everybody across the board accountable, from the board on down, right? Leaders lead by example. Like, even as parents, we could tell our children till we're blue in the face, don't do that. But we've got to be an example for our children. So I'm gonna need the board to be an example. They need to be an example for the admin, for the staff, period. That's what accountability looks like. It looks like action.
If I can, sorry, Janelle, I'm sorry, keep going.
No, you're fine. Go ahead, say what you gotta
If
say.
I can open this up for a minute, we're going to come back to people we haven't heard from yet, but I think this is a pivotal part of the discussion. I'd like it to open it up to anybody right now. And I really want to push on this concept of accountability, because what I've heard from all of you, what my experience is through MEC, is that people have been giving feedback for years. MEC has been in front of the board for over a year. If you saw our most recent public comment, we listed every single date of every letter, of every public comment. The board will hold the superintendent accountable, but if the board, who's holding the board accountable? How do we do, I want to hear from this group. What do we expect from this board? And how do we hold this board accountable? We have a new board as of this next school board meeting. So how do we do that? Because I don't think there's anybody, certainly in this panelist group, and MEC included, that would say the board held their end of the bargain. Certainly this last school board, and certainly boards before that and before that. So I want, and I know the community wants, I'm getting pinged over here on the side. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how do we do that? And then how does the community help do that? So I will open up to anyone who wants to start, and let's just make sure that everyone who wants to speak can speak. But who has thoughts on that?
Can I say something?
Yes.
I think that by us having this panel and us being able to connect with each other is the first step to be able to hold the board accountable. Because if you think about it, these situations have been singular situations that we're going to advocate for our children, our personal children. But if we all come together as a group and stay together, stay in contact, stay contacting the board, stay having these panel meetings where we're talking about what's going on, so it's hit from every direction, then that's the first step to start to hold the board accountable. I think that we also need to hold the school, the superintendent accountable, because he was there when I was there and he was the assistant superintendent. I never got to speak to the superintendent because she never would take a meeting with me. She would never take a call with me. And it seems like they kind of pushed Dr. Blasco because he maybe could handle with my temperament better than she could, because I'm an aggressive mama bear. So I think that we should have more of these type of meetings and try to connect this way. And when Dr. Blasco tells Stephanie something and Dr. Blasco tells AJ something or Janelle something, y'all talk to each other and say, oh, he told you this. So then I can be like, well, you told AJ this and that and told Stephanie, when is that happening? When are those moves being? So all of us are holding him accountable. I see that he'll tell somebody one thing, or the school board will tell somebody one thing, and then when somebody else is in front of their face, they tell that person something else to try to pacify you. So something that you want to hear, but that's not actually the actions that they're going to take. So that's just my opinion on how we can.
If I can summarize, so I make sure that I understand and that the community understands that, first of all, that the families that are being impacted effectively need to form a coalition, that we need to say that there is power in numbers and we need to stay together in numbers, is what I heard you say.
Yes.
And that we need to communicate so that we can compare stories and messages, and that one, if action isn't happening, and two, if the message isn't being consistent from family to family, that we are able to push back in numbers and as a group. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
And I think the third thing I heard is to continue to do this publicly so that the community continues to know. Did I hear those three things correctly?
Yes, because I don't think that everybody in Monroe is bad people or racist people, but there's this group of people that are actually being looked at as the people of Monroe because we are not speaking up and it's not getting publicized, and other families that would support us don't know that this is going on. You know, a lot of people hit me up in my inbox when I lived in Monroe, was like, why you didn't tell me, that still live in Monroe, and be like, why you didn't tell me Christopher was going through this, or Christopher was going through that, or you moved schools because of this. And I was like, I thought y'all all knew, but there was no forum, there was no platform for me to even tell them. And the school they are very efficient at making sure that it doesn't get spread out to everyone that this is going on. I think I remember Jill working for the school district when we first came out there. She was working for the school district, and she always was very compassionate about what was going on. But I seen in her demeanor that something more was going on. Like, her energy told me that something else was going on, but that she could not advocate the way that she wanted to because of her own situation. So this has been going on, and the school board literally, they're doing it on purpose. It's not like they're doing it because they're naive. They're not naive. They see what's going on in the world. Everybody sees what's going on in the world. They just thought that they're little Monroe over on on the other side of 2, and that ain't nobody really gonna care about what's going on in little Monroe.
Jill, I see you unmuted. Is there something you want to jump in here? Okay.
Well, that being said, I also believe that there is not a lot of transparency from the district to the board. The board doesn't always hear all of these stories. They don't. It is filtered through Belasco's view, Belasco's thing, or they don't hear them at all. So these type of forums are great so the board can hear our stories. I know I was a fortunate situation because I worked with someone whose husband was on the school board. So I could go around, and at that time Belasco was HR. So I could go around all of that and get access to the school board. But if they don't know our stories, or if they don't know what's happening, how can they be effective? It's how do we hold Belasco accountable? Because all of it is words. There's no action. That's I wrote little notes down. What do we need? We need action. Stop talking. Start putting your pedal to the metal, mister. Really.
So that's a good segue for a moment. We're going to come back to this too. And those of you who are on, I really hope you stay on till the very end, because we're going to have a call to action at the end. But Zoe and Nathan, this is a good segue into it. You know, obviously introduce yourselves. Zoe and Nathan are both 2020, right? We're in 2021. Wait, you're 2020 graduates or 2021? Yeah, I've lost track. You just graduated. You were in the most recent graduating class. They were leaders of the Monroe Inclusion Collective, a student-led equity group, and I'll let them talk more about it. But you all did some research. And you did some research on what was going on. You had a very hard time getting in front of the board, but you finally got in front of the board. You shared with them, and you did propose a set of actions. And, you know, to date, those have not been acted upon. But so let's hear more about your stories, your experiences, what came out of the survey, and then back to this accountability. You know, you guys worked your tails off, and there's been no action. So how do you see accountability? How do we hold the people who have the power to make these decisions accountable as a community? But both of you can both talk at the same time.
Nathan, go ahead and get started, Nathan.
Oh, gotcha. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, yeah, thanks for having us on today and thanks for putting this together. Yeah, so Zoe and I were two of three leaders in the Monroe Inclusion Collective. You know, we started in summer 2020. We started putting together research on surveying our you know, fellow students of the Monroe School District and collecting their experiences of racism and hatred. So, you know, we pushed that out. We got about like 100 responses. We read through each response and it was really, you know, traumatic reading through all those instances of trauma and all those students' experiences of racism and hate and of discrimination of being repeatedly targeted. So we put that research together. We developed solution plans. That solution plan, including like resources and mental health care to BIPOC and marginalized students, disciplinary policy reform and transparency, inclusive curricular changes, and increased DEI training. We started putting together our goal to present this to the Monroe School District Board at a meeting. It was actually an uphill battle getting onto the board in the first place. You know, we reached out to the board because this was in the wake of the other racist event, which happened when in early June 2020, where one of the then Monroe School District board members had a daughter that was caught on camera saying the N-word. So this was in the wake of that, in a period where the some of the district admin were, you know, meeting with, having like listening sessions where they were like saying a lot of the things that Erica, Miss Henry, and Miss Singleton were speaking about, a lot of those like repeated talking points. So, you know, we put together a goal to present these findings at the Monroe School District Board, and we tried pushing ourselves. We got no response. They knew that we had this research put together and we published it. By then we made it public. We reached out to the Monroe Equity Council for help, and they had like their advocates within the district pushing for us to be able to present these findings. And, you know, it wasn't for a number of months after we had this research put together and finalized by like October. It took until January to be able to present this, and that wasn't, you know, you could tell that it wasn't like a something that they wanted to happen. It was more so a reluctant, you know, we have so many people pushing for this, so we're gonna just let it happen. Actually, on that note, we had like board members like reaching out to our advocates on the inside of the district and saying that they would be willing to have like one-on-one meetings instead of having us on the school board meeting. So kind of like sweeping this under the rug and sweeping our research under the rug, making sure that the community doesn't know that, you know, out of our respondents, when we asked if people had reported it, their racism and their hateful experiences, that 80% of students said that they had not reported it because of you know, the district's history of inaction and history of apathy towards these. And of those students, you know, 80% of the students that did reply, that did report those incidents, they didn't feel like they're safe afterwards. So it was a really uphill battle just getting to present there. And, you know, fast forward to till after the school board meeting, the school board, you know, they said, you know, they wanted to partner up with us, and that they were committed to meeting their equity statements and making sure that every student was safe. They said all that during like the school board meeting. And you know, we tried reaching out to them afterwards. We sent like emails to each of them, emails to Superintendent Blasco, board member Chuck Whitfield, board member Jennifer Bumpus, and we haven't heard any response since. So I really believe that they knew that we were seniors, and you know that we were going to graduate soon. That so they just decided to wait us out and make sure that we were out without following up or providing any action. But Zoe, would you like to speak on that as well?
Yes. And guess what? We're back. We're back. Hope you're ready for what I'm going to say. So yeah, we gave them a blueprint. We gave them a blueprint. And I want to be specific. We've got 2 incidents on camera now that are racist incidents. And we presented nearly 100 incidents. So to me, as we were talking in this panel about what accountability looks like and what it's sharing our stories, and that's exactly what we wanted to do. We knew that if there was any excuse that the school board or the administration could say that they had no idea what was going on, that we needed to fix that. We had nearly 100 incidents, nearly 100 students. That is a large number. We have one right now that is on camera, and that like this is sparked. This is nearly 100. So you're not going to be able to act like you're shocked or this is surprising. You don't get that right, because we gave you everything that you needed to show you our experiences and our stories, and we had a platform and we shared that with you, and we weren't putting them on blast, and we were presenting our findings. And it was more than research. It's personal stories. It's people that have really lived through these experiences of racism and hate crimes that are not okay. And we gave them a blueprint that we knew. We couldn't just say, here's our experiences. We gave them actions. We set them up with resources, with connections, with partnerships. So this is what we want from you. This is what we need from you, from the community, for the community. And we got nothing. And so to me, they're representing our community, the board, and as representatives, they need to be able to hear us and take action. And if this is not work that they want to prioritize, then it should not be them that are these representatives of our community. If you're not willing to advocate for us and to fight for us on incidents that are so clearly reported and so given to the community from the student, these are children and these are families and these are real people. And if you're not willing to fight for us and to advocate us, then it should not be you, but it is you. And it is you on the board, and it is you in this position. And so you must do it for us. And I believe it was KJ's mom that was saying that a parent on the panel, that her son had lost faith in the system. And I have not lost hope, but I've lost my hope in the school board. I've not lost my faith, but I've lost my faith in the school board. And it's their responsibility to re-earn that. And no matter my disbelief in them, is their responsibility to go past my expectations and do the work for us, because our expectations need to be exceeded. It's their priority. It must be their priority to gain back our trust, to gain back our loyalty, because that's essential to being on this. And from my experience, they haven't acted, and we gave them a blueprint, and it's nearly 100 students. And I hope that they failed, and I hope that this, and I feel like I failed as well as someone that has advocated for this and has done work. And so I hope words like these that I'm saying incite something in someone, hope they have a gut reaction to this, so that you can see, and from personal experience, that words hold meaning, words hold weight. These racist words that are happening, these racist crimes that are happening hold weight. They have a power to crush these families and these students. And they have a power to damage us. And it's important that this board understands that these words are preventable by them. The words spoken at the parking lot, the racist words spoken in the parking lot, the words that we've encountered our whole entire lives, the words that I'm speaking now have been entirely preventable, but your inaction has caused these to be spoken. And what really needs to happen, and what I'm frustrated seeing, is the surprise from everybody, and the community wants to know what they can do, which is great. I think the community needs to be involved and absolutely should be. Pay attention. We've been working on this for over a year. We gave time for the school board to implement these. It was a blueprint for actions. There wasn't anything left up to the imagination, and so I think this community needs to pay attention, and the school board really does need to act. And our stories have been shared in a lot of ways, and they need to continue to be shared. And words hold power, and this needs to change. And I think from my experience, as well as with the BSU, Caleb Cole and Taylor James were one of the founders of the BSU, and they had trouble even getting the Black Student Union to be started. And so this resistance is not okay, and this lack of action is not okay, and it's a failure, and it's failing this community is not acceptable, and it should not be tolerated. And there just needs to be more, and especially like we're seeing now. Like, I don't even know what's happening to these other students. And it's just, it was entirely, not necessarily by this incident, but we gave them I'm just so frustrated because we gave them everything that we had asked for, our needs, specifically from the students, and they were all unmet. So, and not necessarily within the school itself, there were some really great people, but not the board. Their inaction is so prevalent. So yeah, that's my experience, and my disappointment. Well, not disappointment, because in order to have disappointment, you have to have hope, and that's gone now. So, but that's my impassioned words. I'm just very frustrated, but I'm back.
You're back. I'm glad you're back, and I could listen to you all day. I want to call out one thing you said. You did not fail. The adults failed you. You carried a burden. They failed you. They failed every family on this call. They failed the kids in the school district. You did not fail. You carried a burden that never should have been yours to carry. And you need to know that. The adults have failed. The adults have failed in the school system. The adults have failed in the community. Many, many, many of us have the best of intent. Many of us are, probably feel like we didn't know. We still failed because we should know. That's our job. Our job is to know. Our job is to listen, and our job is to act. So you did not fail. Let's be clear about that. Tanya, we haven't heard from you yet, and I want to make sure we get your voice and your unique story as well. So the platform is yours now.
Thank you. So I really wanted to touch on what Zoe had pointed out, is the frustration from the surprised reactions from the community, because this happened last year too. And I remember when that video was going around social media, I remember seeing parents being like, oh my God, I can't believe that this is our Monroe, that this is what the culture is like in Monroe. You can ask any student in the district and they will tell you that has been the culture, it is the current culture. And, like Janelle said, that's been the culture all the way since 2008. Nothing has changed. And that's the most frustrating part, is seeing people act so surprised when it's right there, and yeah, it's just, especially when it comes to the statement that I read that the superintendent released in regards to what happened in November. The whole, this is completely surprising to us, even though there have been so many stories for so many years, so many families trying to get action taken to protect their students, and nothing gets done. And yet they still have the audacity to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, safety is our number one concern, yada, 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 when obviously they haven't done anything to prove that, And it's something where even my first year of high school was in 2016. I graduated in 2020. And my first year of high school was the peak 2016 presidential election. And I remember one of my very first experiences was walking down the hall to my 6th period class, hearing an upperclassman boy say that he was going to lynch any Black and brown students he found if Trump lost. And that was my first experience being exposed to the culture of specifically Monroe High School. And I just can't get over how frustrating it is, how a lot of people who are, even some people who I know who were a part of that racist culture, trying to act like they had no idea it existed, and how they're so disappointed when they were actively participating in it as well. Yeah.
Tanya, thank you for sharing that. I just hear that story of a freshman. You were a freshman in 2016. You said it was your first year. You were a freshman? Yeah.
Yes.
Walking down the hall and hearing that. And, I listened to Erica and I heard her say, I'm an aggressive mom. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Can you imagine? For people on this call, can you imagine Tanya as your child? And someone is telling your child overhears that someone wants to lynch her. Like, we should all be mad. We should all be aggressive right now. We should do it in a way that's productive, in a way that is going to drive action. But yeah, we should be pissed off. We should be really pissed off right now. I want to go back to Tamara and DC a little bit, because you got away before you had a chance. But Zoe touched on the Black Student Union, and both of you are involved in that. And I know that there's been some trouble getting that going and getting support for it. So first of all, I want to open the platform for you to tell the story that you want to tell the community. But also, if you could tell us a little more about the Black Student Union, what's going well, what's not going well, is there something the community can do to help? What do you need from the school to help? But I want to hear more from the two of you.
Thank you for having us. I'm Dorcas, or many know me by DC. So far for our Black Student Union, we've had some productive meetings. We have set some goals on what we would like to achieve this year. But when it comes to trying to present it to the school, hasn't gone too well. Like for our tailgate, when we set up a station, there's many people laughing and like pointing, like talking about our station. And it just felt like even some of the Black students that do go there are also making fun of what we're doing and what awareness we're trying to bring to. And I feel like for the Black Student Union, we don't want it to just be about just the Black kids. I feel like everybody who wants their voice heard and wants to see action, I feel like that's what I want the group to be about. More of a safe space for anybody, doesn't matter your race or religion, that you can come and be able to share your experience and to move for a better community and better things to happen. And for experience at the school, nobody's really listening. And I know the teachers can hear the things going on, because every single day, I swear there's somebody that says the N-word in the halls. There's somebody being racist or being bullying or being like whatever it is, you see it on a day-to-day basis. And for that incident to happen, I really wasn't surprised about it. I didn't even know what happened until Tamara had called me, and I was like, what are you talking about? And then I see it on the school's Facebook page, and my mom asked me, what happened at school? I'm like, I'm not even sure that was happening at school. But it's not a surprise, because it's a constant thing you see at school. There's always somebody saying it. It's like little slick comments being said. Unless you're paying attention, you won't be able to catch too much. But it's like side little dishes. Like, they know exactly what they're saying. But I feel like when it comes to those type of things, students don't say anything because there's no actions that's been done to prove that you can come to the adults, that they will actually do something about it. And it reminds me of during our English class, Ms. Berg's class, I love her class. There we were talking about like the Emmett Till and those type of situations. And there's a certain kid in the class that was constantly trying to defend the actions of those white men they did. And it's really frustrating to just sit there and try not to kind of get angry about what he was saying. So I kind of just look at the teacher and she'll kind of have to change the subject or move on to it. But it was a constant thing with him, and you can kind of tell where he was coming from.
Would you have liked the teacher to address it? Instead of changing the subject and moving forward, would you like the teacher to have made that a teachable moment and to have actually addressed what was going on?
Yeah, I felt like she didn't really talk about it too much, but I feel like she would have said more than what she had said, and said like, you know, you can't say those type of things, and there's no way for you to try to sit there and they try to give an excuse as to what happened. Nobody deserves for their lives to be taken. Nobody deserves to constantly be in fear of, oh, what if I get killed in the streets just because somebody doesn't like Black people? It's a constant thing. Just walking into a store and people feel like you're being watched constantly because they think you're going to steal or do something. It's a constant thing. Yeah.
My name is Tamara Grigsby. I'm the Vice President of Black Student Union. Me and my family moved here in 2018. We moved from California, where we didn't really have to deal with racism or anything that had to do with our race because it's pretty diverse there. So moving to a predominantly white school was really hard. I would get stares and laughs from many students in the hallways. Many of my siblings and I have gone through many racial issues that are not acceptable. The school, what it lacks, what needs to be implemented in every classroom is education. And students getting educated is what will prevent this from happening again, because we were in this exact same place last year and nothing has changed. That's exactly why the incident that happened on November 10th happened. And I'm pretty sure that if Keith would have done something in defense to himself to any of the kids that were attacking him, he would have been portrayed as the angry Black boy, slaps white girl. That's exactly how it would have been implemented. And I know the school tried to help us in a way by having assemblies and meetings like this, but that's not permanent change. The assemblies that did take place at the school, people were laughing and giggling, making snarky comments, acting different in the classrooms, and just were disrespectful, didn't care. So that's something that didn't help at all. Permanent change is being lacked and needs to be more implemented in the community, in this whole town, because it happens everywhere.
Thank you, Tamara. We have one person who's not sitting on the panel, but does want to say something, and we connected through Janelle earlier. So Mila, I'm going to promote you to talk. After Mila, we are at 7:15, and I'm going to talk about a call of action. I'm looking through the Q&A. Most of the Q&A is really around what can we do, how do we support, and that's what we're going to talk about next. This is not the one and only conversation. I think we've talked about this here. We're going to have to keep talking. We're going to have to keep working. This is the beginning. But I do want to give Mila a chance to talk. So I hope I have the right person here. It just says Mila, M-Y-L-A. Not a common name. And Mila, you'll need to turn your video on or people can't, you don't show up on the screen.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My camera would be where? Camera's right there. I don't know if it's on. I don't see you on the screen. Ask her if she see you. I don't see the camera.
It's okay. If you can't get the camera on, people should be able to hear you. But I think, let me get firm.
Okay, well, my name is Mila, and I have a freshman at Monroe High School. Sort of quiet dude, but he does play football and basketball, but he's pretty much quiet and laid back. He was in his health class, and the question for today was, what type of food do you eat? So the teacher called on him. And before he could say anything, it was a couple of guys in there and they said, all he knows is watermelon and chicken. And the joke went on and on and on. To my knowledge, the teacher didn't say anything. My son never said anything to me and my husband. He never said anything. How we found out was a student in the class who was on the Black Student Union, I believe. She went home and told her mom. Her mom found me in Facebook and messaged me and told me what happened. And so we did talk with Willie Brett, the school principal. He just called us again tonight. He called us over the Thanksgiving weekend. He sent the email, but he never, got back with us or anything, never got back to us. But he did call me tonight, called me and my husband tonight, and he told us that he haven't forgot about us. It's real busy at the school right now. He's not going to be there tomorrow, but he'll try to reach back out to us again on Friday. And he has the kids' names. And so we just waiting to hear back. But other than that, we hadn't heard anything.
So what I think what I hear you saying is, one, again, the stories are consistent, and that, there isn't yet a, we still don't have a system or a culture at the district that can handle these things when they happen. I think everyone's realistic that getting into a place where something never happens is probably not going to happen, because, sometimes people are not nice. But we can significantly reduce them. And I hear a pattern of when they do happen, there doesn't seem to be the right level of training or system equipped to be able to deal with them. Is that right, Mila?
Yes, I don't think they have the equipment to deal with anything like this. But one simple thing they do have, they have the platform for education. They it's a lot of different things. When they held the assembly, my son, I'm piggybacking on Tamara. My son also told me that, a lot of people was laughing, they just didn't care. And I think that's one of the reasons why he did not say anything. He said, well, what good am I gonna say something for when I see other things happening and they know about it and nothing is being done? So it's a lot of things that they can do. And one of them, a big one, is use that platform, use those classrooms, get some Black history in this school, educate these kids, educate the teachers, educate the principal, whoever wants to get involved, they can.
I love that. Thank you, Mila. I'm going to move forward now. Hold on, I am.
Maybe to minimize it right here. Try that. Oh, go back.
Hey, Melanie,
Yeah.
can I ask you a question?
Yes, you may.
Or can I say something real quick? I wanted to respond to what Tanya said earlier. She said that she was so surprised. I want to let everybody know that the culture amongst Black folks that live in other counties, when you tell them that you live in Monroe or your child goes to a school in Monroe, they immediately say, what? You live in Monroe? It's racist out there. So this is coming from grandparents. This is coming from people that are in their 50s, people that are in their 40s, people that are in their 20s. So they know that this culture has been going on for numerous years. And amongst the Black folks that never lived in Monroe, they'd be like, oh, when you invite them, when I lived there, when I would invite them to my house, they would be like, well, I'm gonna come early. But if it was when it gets dark at 5 o'clock, they was ready to leave before it got dark, because of the rumors that they hear in Pierce County, in King County about Monroe, Sultan, Arlington, Snohomish, Sammamish, Lake Stevens. It is a culture that is talked about amongst minorities, at least amongst Black folks that I know, all around the counties, popping all the way to Tacoma. You bring up Monroe, they'd be like, the only Black people that live out there is in the prison. I've actually heard that. statement several times. So Tanya, I 100% hear what you're saying, Mama, that they shouldn't be surprised because it's not a surprising thing. That's an act.
Yeah, and Erica, as you're saying that, someone has popped up in the Q&A and says, I'm Black and grew up in Tacoma, Snohomish County. In Tacoma, Snohomish County in general was scary, unknown territory for me. I feared going to on my own. So this is a good segue. I'm going to turn my screen back on here for a minute. Hold on, share screen. So, as I said earlier, can someone on the panelists give me a thumbs up? You can see the screen? Yeah, okay. This is a good segue. So panelists, I'd also encourage you to scroll through the Q&A. You'll find a lot of stories in there. You'll also see a lot of people asking how to help. And that really is the common theme as I'm scrolling through the Q&A is, you know, how can we help? What do we do? And what I will say is that, you know, it should be clear to everyone listening on tonight's call, we do have work to do. And so I hear you, I hear the people who are Q&Aing and texting Bridget that what can we do? You want a tangible action. And so what we had talked about with some of the families ahead of time, and what we are asking this community to do is the next school board meeting is December 13th at 6 p.m. This is the first board meeting with the new board. This is a chance to start again. This is a chance to start new. The new school board members have been sworn in and they will be there. We are asking you all to show up. The board meeting should be on Zoom. We will keep you posted on that. They've been on Zoom. To speak, you have to fill in a public comment form by noon the day of the meeting. So noon of December 13th. We will put all of this on our website, on our Facebook and Instagram. You don't have to write everything you're going to say. You just are signing up to speak. And when it says, what are you going to speak about? You, I don't know, say racism, say whatever you want. You don't have to put your full comment. We are asking you to show up. We are asking you because part of the way we hold the board accountable is by showing up in numbers and showing up in strength and saying that this is what the parents and families and taxpayers and of this community demand. And so we are asking the board to take action to become an anti-racist district. You will see on our Facebook and on our webpage in the last board meeting, the Monroe Equity Council actions items, and we asked for some specific things. We asked the school board to commit to accountability to the community. There are some ideas, these are just ideas. This is what this group of people that you see in the call and all of you listening on the call need to figure out what that looks like. But it could be forming a community advisory board that's a majority minority board, meaning that the majority of the people on the board are our BIPOC families, our LGBTQ families, and our students with disabilities. We are focusing heavily on racism as we should tonight, but this is happening to our LGBTQ plus families and our families who have disabilities as well. We are asking that the board commits to equity and anti-racism training above and beyond the state mandated requirements, which are this big. You heard tonight over and over and over that a large part of the problem is not that some people are trying to intentionally harm, is they don't know what to do. And there's people, you know, educators and administrators and perhaps even board members who are afraid to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, so they do nothing, and that is dangerous and it is harmful as doing something actively racist. And so let's get educated. Let's learn how to do what to do. Ask the board to commit to that type of training. We are asking the board to establish an equity component and measures to the superintendent's performance evaluation. This is double accountability, because if the board does that, they are holding themselves accountable as well. They cannot ask the superintendent to do something that they will not empower him or her to do, right? So we're asking for that for all of this discussion, for all of this action to be bounded by official accountability. And then likewise, the superintendent should be pushing those types of performance evaluations down throughout the district staff and educators. Just to belabor the point, the school board must empower district employees with meaningful resources of time, personnel, and budget and necessary to build an equitable culture. And we are unequivocally asking to hire an equity director. It is clear that there are some people in this district who really want to do this work, but it is fragmented. It means that some people who want to do this work are doing some things here, some people are doing nothing, and some people are pushing against it. There's no end-to-end plan. There's no end-to-end focus. There's no end-to-end clear objective. There's no end-to-end measurement. There's no end-to-end evaluation if things are changing and working. Someone needs to be on point for that. And it is also very important that that person not report to the Director of Human Resources. That is standard practice. That is not a personal thing. That is so that the Director of Equity can be more empowered. Those are the things that the Monroe Equity Council has asked for. You've heard what the panel tonight has asked for as well. They want to be listened to. They want to be believed. They want, when they bring something to the administration, to be handled, not swept under the rug. They want to be safe and safety measures put in place when and if harm occurs. Listen to these, ask our board of this, ask our district administration of this. And then we have been advocating since the beginning to Zoe's point, they have been given a blueprint that was student-led on action items from the Monroe Inclusion Collective. We have been advocating for this all year. In Zoe and Nathan's absence, we ask that they continue to incorporate that into the work that they're doing. We ask that you show up and you demand your expectations for the same, for these action items. That is the most tangible thing you can do right now. Then you continue to participate, you continue to listen, you continue to educate your children at home about what racism is and what it looks like. You continue to, when you see it, you call it out, you stop it. You don't let it slip. You don't let the racist jokes that you practice it, not just within the school, you practice it at your holiday dinner table. This is ongoing work. And we all have to do this work collectively. Everyone in our community needs to be safe. Every single solitary person, emotionally safe, physically safe. And we have a moral responsibility to do this work and to stand up for our families. So we will have more. If you cannot make the meeting, please do write to the school board. All of the emails are on our website. Note that we have to change 2 emails because so we will update those. Director Langston, Director Chessman are no longer on the board. Send them, but those do not get read in the board meetings. They used to, they don't anymore. So please, as many of you that can show up and speak, show up and speak. Show these families, this community is behind them. So we are at 7:30 on the dot. I want to thank everybody who came and listened today. I want to close, I guess I'll stop sharing now because we can't see people when I do this. There we go. I want to thank everyone who came and listened today. I deeply, deeply want to thank the faces that I see and I'm looking at on this call. There aren't words to convey the gratitude. There are not words to hold your pain in an appropriate way. There's not words to stand in awe of your resilience. There's not words to express the sadness that you have to have resilience to begin with. But I hope you feel empowered. I hope you feel like you had a platform tonight. And I hope you feel that there is a community behind you. We are going to keep working to provide a better place for you and your families. So thank you. Good night.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you, Melanie. Have a good night.
Thank you. You
Hi,
too.
everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank
Night,
you, Melanie.
everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Guys.